Hello everyone. Thank you for coming and clicking on this video. I just want to let you know real quick, the video you are about to watch is a pre-recorded video because I decided to take some time off to be with the Lord and also to just take a break from social media. So I will no longer be posting videos weekly. I will be posting one video monthly on the 15th of every month for the remainder of 2024. If you want to know my whole story on why I'm doing this, definitely go ahead and click the video right here that lays it all out for you. All right, well, no more of this. Let's get to the video. All right, guys, let's jump into this video. Okay, so this video, we need to figure out how can you retain the information that you are studying in order to pass your NBCOT exam. I have 8 tips for you, and we're going to jump into it right now. So the first tip is this: teach someone else. Okay? This is how you can know if you're comprehending and also helping you to retain what you are learning. Because if you can regurgitate information and explain it to someone that does not know what you're talking about in a layman's terms or easy to understand manner, then you got the information. And by doing that, it's going to also help you to retain it, because when we are speaking and our brain is also hearing our voice, it's like a feedback that we're getting, right? And by doing that, that's why it's so powerful when people are studying. You might see lawyers or just people that have to remember a lot of information, or doctoral students. You might sometimes see that they're like pacing and they're talking and they're looking at their flashcards and they're talking and they're repeating it back to yourself. This is actually very powerful because you are using more than one kind of study style. You are using your visual by looking and reading it. You're using your voice. This is auditory by hearing it, right? And that is so powerful when it comes to retaining information. Tip number 2 is you want to know, when are you most alert? When are you most productive? Okay, so if you're trying to retain information, you need to study at a time where you're most alert, or I should say most productive. So if you are working, let's say a 10-hour shift, and then you come home and you're like, all right, I'm going to eat real quick and then I'm going to sit down to study, that might not work for you. You might not be the most alert at that time because you probably might get tired, and then you had a meal. So now you're probably really tired and you probably got the itis at that point because now you're full. Okay. So think about what time of day can you be most alert? And when I say also most alert is also, if you have children like me, you have to either have a conversation with your spouse or significant other and just say, you know what? This is a particular time that I need for studying, and I need it to be distraction free, right? And you get to work at that time, and that's going to help you with retaining the information. Tip number 3 is you have to focus on one topic at a time. Now, oh my gosh, guys, like, you don't understand how frustrating it is when I'm having a conversation with a student and they're all over the place. All over the place. And I'm like, no wonder you're struggling to retain information, because you don't have a system. You're all over the place, right? So when you are trying to retain, you need a system. You need to get organized. And if you're like, I am the most unorganized person, I've tried to put a system together and it's just not working, don't worry, I got you. If you go down to the description below, you'll see my course, Study with a Coda. Go check it out. There's a video, explainer video on everything there. I give it to you all in detail. Hopefully that will help you. Okay, let's continue. Okay, next tip. Tip number 4 is to write. Okay. So remember what I said before when I was like, people would talk and they would, as they're pacing back and forth, they're talking to themselves and they're looking at, let's say, their flashcards or looking at the notes. What you can also incorporate, and I do this a lot, is now you are writing. So now you're including multiple different senses of learning. So you are not only doing your auditory where you're hearing yourself speak, you're not only seeing your visual because you're seeing, what is written, but now you're writing. Okay. So I would implore you to try to tap into all of these kind of styles. I know, like I said, for me, I like to write on a whiteboard. Okay. For some reason, I'm just like I'm a teacher at heart. I'm a coach. I'm a teacher at heart. That's what I do. That's what I love to do. I think that's one of the big reasons I got into the profession, because I felt like I was coaching my patients, which we really do. And I love that part. I love the education. So for me, just writing and speaking and pointing to it and breaking it down helps me to retain information. So maybe this is something you can try. So tip number 5 is you want to make it practical and interesting, right? You can use a song. You can use a mnemonic. You can create scenarios, right? I think MBCOT have Sims, I think they call it Sims, where it's like simulations and stuff like that. You can use games, whatever you have to do to make this information come alive to you. I was having a conversation with a student and they're really struggling with putting the information into like a practical manner. And I said, okay, take a MBCT question, right? And I want you to actually visualize yourself as the therapist, and the patient that's being mentioned in the question is sitting right in front of you. Okay. And I said, if we want to take it a step further, let's say this either is, maybe your friend is calling you because their father just had a stroke and they're asking you this particular question. Now you caring for them, you're like, okay, let me explain to you and provide you with this necessary information so you can know how to proceed, right? You could do it that way. So you see how I'm making it interesting, I'm making it practical, I'm trying to help the information come alive. You need to do the same thing, because at the end of the day, you're working with somebody's auntie, father, sister, brother. You have to think of it in that way. You're working with people, all right? So tip number 6, you got to take breaks. You need to block study, right? What do I mean by block study? You study for a certain period of time, then you take a break. You don't touch anything. All right? You study for a certain period of time, you take a break, you don't touch everything. And I think this is important because I know people be like, oh, well, how long should I study? And people be like, oh, 5, 6 hours. Okay, that's great, but I do not recommending anyone to study for 5 straight hours. Even 3 straight hours, I don't even recommend that. If you want to do a total of 3 or 5, yes, I recommend you do a total throughout the day, but not 3 or 5 hours straight in a session. I just don't recommend it. I don't think that you're going to retain every single thing you're reading. But if you block study, maybe you do the first hour, you take a break, and then you come back, and maybe even if you do 2 hours, then you take a break. But I just feel like after 2 hours, even an hour and a half, I feel like something happens in our brain where we start drifting and we start losing focus. So whenever you feel like that's happening, that's an indication that you should take a break. It doesn't mean that you have to take an hour break. You might just take 10, 15 minutes, maybe go to the bathroom, get something to drink, get a snack, and come back and continue. Tip number 7 is use a mnemonic. All right. I can't tell you what mnemonic to use, but I know in my course we used one and it has been so beneficial. I feel like for people to retain the structure of how they're answering their questions. So definitely create your mnemonics, break down your questions, whatever your system is. Definitely make sure you have one. And then the 8th and final tip is, if you feel like you're having a hard time remembering information, maybe you need to jump into a study group. All right. If you are looking to get accountability and you're like, yeah, I think a study group would be great, I implore you, come on over to Study with a Coda group. The information is in the description below. It is a private Facebook group, but it's free. All right. All you simply need to do is answer the group questions, and that's it. All right. So I hope that this video was helpful in helping you to retain everything you are studying. And I wish you the best of luck. All right. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.